insane four-way all-in coming up. Hello world, and we are back. My name's Kyle Fischel, and this is going to be episode 64 of my poker vlog. And today I'm going to talk about some interesting hands from the last 2 weeks of playing. I typically only talk about the hands that are abnormal or noteworthy. So sometimes when you play a session, just nothing interesting happens and you don't have enough content to make a video. So that's why this one's across the last 2 weeks. So without further ado, we're going to get right into some hands. This is from a 2-5 no limit session at Orange City Racing and Card Club, Orlando, Florida. First interesting hand. It folds all the way to a middle position player who raises to $15. I'm in the hijack with pocket jacks. I think it's a pretty easy 3-bet spot. I should have the best hand most of the time and can play a sizable pot in position, so I raise to $50. However, the cutoff, the button, and the big blind all call before the middle position pre-flop aggressor raises to 240. Honestly, a really good sizing by my opponent. He definitely chose a sizing that would get a lot of folds here. And that kind of begs the question of what hand would you only bet 15 and then 4-bet? Like, are you trying to say that you only 3x'd it with aces or kings and now you're going to 4-bet it? I think my opponent is very heavily weighted towards ace king and ace queen here. So I would actually really like to call. The only problem with this specific hand is the player to my direct left only has about $300 in their stack. And they've had some less than optimal luck. So I really just expect the opponent on my left to jam 100% of the time. And playing jacks 3 ways out of position with a side pot possibility isn't really the situation I'm looking for. I don't think it plays too well as a 4-bet calling hand, and I really don't think it's good for a 5-bet bluff. So, with that being said, I fold. Being results oriented, the board comes out double paired, and the cutoff and the middle position player got it all in, and they chopped it ace queen versus ace jack. So I was actually doing very, very good. And I include this hand because in hindsight, I actually think this should be a spot where you consider 5-betting.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda, Raj.
Because of all the callers of $50. Several of these players who call $50 could easily have like king queens and ace tens, and they actually block each other and take out many of the outs of just random overcard hands. Because there's evidence of many blockers being accounted for, this is a unique circumstance where I think a 5-bet actually makes sense. Let me know what you think. Comment below. Next interesting hand. The under the gun player limps. I'm under the gun +1 with pocket aces. I'm going to size up here a bit because I still have the entire table to go through who get to react to this bet. So I raised to $25. One late position player calls and the under the gun player calls as well. So we're going 3 ways to a flop. Of Jack 4-4, 2 diamonds. One of the safest boards I could ask for. Neither of my opponents should have a 4 all too often, although it's not impossible. There's a ton of Jack X and diamond draws that can pay off multiple streets. So when it's checked to me, I bet $50. The late position caller folds and the under the gun player decides to call.
Rich, your table transfer is ready. Rich, your table transfer is ready.
The turn is the 9 of spades. Again, very safe card. The board pairing 4s protects me from a lot of hands. It protects me from exactly Jack 9, as well as any Jack X that would call with their 2 pair outs actually drawing dead. The underpaired board's fantastic for my aces. I'm gonna just keep firing away. I bet $125. My opponent thinks for a little bit and then calls. And the river is the 6 of clubs. Now, when it checks to me, I have to think about sizing a little bit. I think if my opponent did have a 4, they would have shown aggression at some point, either raising the turn or leading out the river. I don't expect them to ever just show up with a 4, just check calling all the way down. And then similarly with pocket jacks, it's pretty unlikely. I want to go a sizing where a jack could easily call And my triple barrel actually makes a lot of sense because I can balance this value bet with my bluffs of missed diamonds. I happen to have the ace of diamonds, which gives me more of a incentive to bet on this river card. My opponent can't have ace x of diamonds where their flush draw miss, they're just going to fold their hand. They have to have some kind of value that called the last two streets, and maybe they'll call a third one. So I bet $210. And my opponent just kind of mutters, this doesn't make any sense. What could you have? And then eventually calls. And aces are good. So that was pretty good.
Make more sense now? Huh? Does it make more sense now?
I've been studying. I go a little thinner these days.
A relatively small amount, 68 million.
I usually go out to eat after poker wins, and this is the face of a man who's just saying, I wonder if I could have got more than 210 on that river.
How about new, you crazy Dutch bastard?
Next interesting hand. And under the gun player limps. It folds to me and I'm in middle position with ace king offsuit. I raise to $25. The button calls before the under the gun limper raises to $105. Definitely an unusual thing to happen. A true Gibbons under the gun limp raise. As this move is usually aces or kings, I want to proceed with caution, even though I actually block aces and kings, and this opponent has been playing kind of wild in the past. So I think this is just an all or nothing situation. If I jam on him, I'm always going to get called by aces or kings. But I think any worst hand is just going to fold anyway. So it's not quite the spot where I want to push the action, but definitely an easy spot to call and reevaluate based on the flop.
3 in.
The flop is king 9-4, 2 hearts.
There wasn't anything I could see.
Excellent board for me, as I also have the ace of hearts in case my top pair is no good. My opponent thinks for a bit of time before checking. Well, I'm just gonna go for some value protection. Like, I think pocket queens might see this board and check call one bet, so I want to make this first bet pretty sizable. Additionally, I don't want some goofy queen 10 of hearts from the button to stay in with good odds. We're going to size up a bit. We bet $200. The button folds, and then the under the gun limp Gibbons razor, he eventually lets go ace queen offsuit. That's actually probably the loosest under the gun limp raise that I've ever seen. It's interesting to see how wide people are willing to do that move. So I thought it was interesting. Right now, what you have to do is pause the video, go below, and hit the subscribe button, because
She can grant eternal life! Eternal!
full disclosure, I can't actually grant eternal life, but you'll never know unless you sub, so.
Ladies and gents, this is the moment you've waited for.
270.
For this hand, under the gun player limps. Under the gun +1 raises to 20. There are 4 callers to me where I'm on the small blind with pocket sixes. Definitely going to set mine for that price, 18 to win 100. I'm actually close to direct odds at this point right now, but either way, we're going to see if we can't bink a set one time in a hand with pretty significant multi-way pre-flop action. And the flop is, wait a second, did we just flop a set?
Unlikely, but seems to be true.
So now, as the small blind, middle set, 6 people in this hand, and a heart draw out there, I'm not going to check to the pre-flop aggressor. I'm just going to lead out because any heart draw can call as well as a jack, and I want to start building this pot as quickly as possible. So I bet $75. The under the gun player calls, then the under the gun +1 player jams all in for approximately $700. Yep, he bet $700 into about 280. Kind of a slight overbet.
Is it just me? Or is it getting crazier out there?
And then the cutoff decides he's going to go all in as well. This was honestly a lot more action than I was anticipating, but I'll give you my thought process on it while the dealer counts out the many side pots, as this was a a crazy hand. So this should be a call most of the time. However, what are the odds one of my opponents actually has pocket jacks? You normally don't see multi-way all in. Against one other person, it's a snap call. Against a call jam, it's much harder. But let's just go through each person's pre-flop action to decide if anyone's likely to have jacks. The under the gun player limp called 20. So that's pretty unlikely to have pocket jacks. Under the gun +1 player raised to 20, so I think it's more credible that he could have pocket jacks. However, would you bet $700 into a $250 pot with pocket jacks? I severely doubt it. You might raise to like 200, 250 because you're not worried about too much, but 700 into 290 doesn't even feel like ace high hearts. It feels like 7-8 of hearts, like something weird like that. The cutoff, he's an opponent who I'm very confident would have 3-bet jacks. He would not be in the cutoff, get 3 calls to him and have jacks and just call. He would make it 200, 280, something like that. He probably doesn't have pocket jacks. So the fact that no one should have pocket jacks is a pretty slam dunk call. Additionally, I think that I might be up against multiple flush draws. I feel even better about me getting all the money in right now. So I eventually jam all in. The under the gun player calls all in.
Here. We're all done. Running out.
Not a heart or a king or a jack.
The river is not the greatest card. It is a red queen, and I do have a split second where I act in sudden dismay, similarly to these actors in the ShamWow commercial that jump up in heightened fear as if she spilled the entire bottle of Coke on the table when, ironically, not even a single drop has spilled.
I thought my jokes were bad.
Okay.
I have 6s.
You two first. Alright, Carl, you're getting this first side here. Here's this here. King Jack. 2 pairs. Alright, 3 6 is getting it.
Get pushed a mountain of chips.
And your button.
And you get one. It's just crackers after this.
Final hand of note. This comes from our 1-3 meetup game, the first Saturday of every month at Orange City Racing and Car Club. Definitely the most fun table in the room. So with 3 $3 limps to me, I'm in the cutoff with King Jack of Spades. I raised to $20. The small blind 3-bets me to 60, and it's back to me. You really don't see too many 3-bets in 1-3 games. Like, they're pretty nutted most of the time, but suited King Jack in position for me is just too good to fold. So I call. The flop is Queen 10-8, Rainbow. One of the better flops I could hope for. My opponent actually down bets to 40. And for that price, I'm 100% going to continue. 3-card Royal. Any spade can let me put some real pressure on him, and I can just hit my straight one time. Turn is a 9.
Unlikely, but seems to be true.
And my opponent checks to me. When he checks to me, this is a spot where I think you should go full polarizing. Because remember, he's a pre-flop 3-better that then down bet. So he's basically saying he could have aces, kings, queens. I guess jacks and 10s would play the same way. As well as ace, king, ace, queen, and I don't think ace, jack checks that turn. With a range that just smashes that full of value and I actually have the nuts, I decide to just open jam, slight overbet, and my opponent snap calls me very quickly. I'm actually not feeling too good about it. He has a set or a really good straight and flush draw. But ironically, my opponent has pocket jacks and he's drawing to 3 outs for a chop, which does not hit. So we win that one as well. So across the last 2 weeks, we are actually in the profit of $3,216. Across multiple days and multiple sessions, it equates to $210 an hour or 40 big blinds an hour. If you watched all the way to this point, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. There will be more to come in the future. I have some big plans and big announcements for 2021, so stay tuned. Thank you.